Good evening. I'm Joe McGuire. This is CT Politics TV Live. You can get all the latest headlines concerning Connecticut by visiting ctpolitics.tv/headline-news. And make sure you give us a follow on social media at CT Politics TV. Will Haskell, former state senator for Connecticut's 26th district and the author of 100,000 First Bosses, My Unlikely Path as a 22-year-old Lawmaker, will join me tonight at 5:30. Now let's take a look at today's headlines. As the 2023 legislative session gets underway, state lawmakers are beginning to talk about more than just the budget. Hundreds of bills have already been filed, tackling topics such as tax cuts, term limits, and termination or human composting. Another bill includes medical vending machines to distribute emergency contraception. During a speech at the Council for the Small Towns this week, Governor Lamont said he believes the state's in good position to create the largest middle-class tax cut the state has ever seen. The governor said he's also focused on creating more housing, expanding local grant lists, he said, will increase revenues for municipalities. The issue of affordable housing also came up during a press conference for the New Deal Democrats. Senator Bob Duff, the majority leader of the state Senate and a member of the New Deal coalition, said priorities include updating local zoning laws to allow for more housing. He cites transforming old tenement projects into new housing to create choice neighborhoods. Yet again, bills for term limits on the governor's office have been proposed. Under the Republican-led proposal, the state constitution would be amended to cap a governor's time in office to 2 consecutive terms of service. Mayor Justin Eckler of New Haven is setting his sights on reducing the number of violent crimes in the Elm City. To do this, Eckler is expected to announce the city's first coordinator of the Office of Violence Prevention during a press conference. The new position will be charged with advancing and coordinating evidence-based programming. The goal would be to rescue community violence in New Haven through public health and social service initiatives. Friday's announcement came as one group already working to change the lives of children to stop the violence, Youth Connect, which is a school-based intervention program that targets at-risk students. The program is divided into various categories, including poor school behavior, school attendance, gang affiliation, and court involvement. Students can be referred to by police, their schools, or even by their own parents. The city of Hartford is teaming up with some local energy companies to try to help people struggling to pay their heating bill this winter. Hartford Mayor Luke Bronin and utility representatives for several companies, including Eversource, announced they're going to hold a community event next week to make sure people know how to apply for state emergency help, but also for the program being offered by the utility companies. To find out about energy help, the informational event will be held on Wednesday, January 18th from 4 to 7 p.m. at Parker Memorial Community Center. That's at 26021 Main Street in Hartford. Well, the firefighter cancer registry is going to be receiving $5.5 million, which is $3 million more than they received last year. It's quite an increase. The CDC is required to develop and maintain a voluntary registry of firefighters to track cancer rates. It expires at the end of this year. Connecticut's Senator Richard Blumenthal has called on Congress to reauthorize it for an additional 5 years. Blumenthal says cancer is the number one cause of deaths among firefighters. Connecticut Senator Christopher Murphy is hoping for another rare bipartisan breakthrough on an issue that has long eluded Congress, reforming the U.S. immigration system. Murphy was part of a bipartisan group of senators who traveled to parts of the border shared by the U.S. and Mexico earlier this week, first to El Paso, Texas, and then to Yuma, Arizona. The trip came a day after President Biden's first trip to the southwest border since he took office. The trip was assembled to help lawmakers better understand the challenges and landscape of the border communities and migrants who are coming into the country. The coalition of senators believes it's time for Congress to act on immigration, even as they enter a divided government that includes a new GOP House majority. Like the issue of gun reform, immigration has been a major hurdle for Congress with decades of inaction. Past deals to overhaul the current system fizzled out. The Senate passed a compromise bill in 2013 before it lost steam in the House. And in 2021, the Democratic-led House passed its own bill, but that went nowhere in the Senate. Connecticut teachers' unions have announced the 2023 legislative agenda, including increasing teacher salaries to attract and retain public school educators. The state was short 1,200 teachers at the beginning of this school year. Most of the vacancies were in the lowest performing school district, that is according to the State Department of Education. The state could use some of the $1 billion budget surplus to increase teacher pay. That's what Kate Diaz, president of the Connecticut Education Association, is calling for. She points out a CEA voter survey conducted last fall found overwhelming support for increased teacher pay. A number of lawmakers, including Democratic House Speaker Matt Ritter and Education Committee co-chair Rep. Jeff Curry, as well as Republican Rep. Kathleen McCarthy, the ranking Republican on the committee, have said they support proposals to use the state's education cost-sharing formula to help reduce size and increase teacher pay. Former President Donald Trump's company was fined $1.6 million as punishment for a scheme in which the former president's top executive dodged personal income tax on lavish job perks, a symbolic, hardly crippling blow for an enterprise boasting billions of dollars in assets. A fine was the only penalty a judge could impose on the Trump Organization for its corruption last month for 17 tax crimes, including conspiracy and falsifying business records. The amount imposed by Judge Juan Manuel Merchan was the maximum allowed by law, an amount equal to double the taxes a small group of executives avoided on benefits, including rent-free apartments in Trump buildings, luxury cars, and private school tuition. Trump himself was not on trial and denied any knowledge of his executives avoiding taxes illegally. The Trump Organization was charged through its subsidies, Trump Corp., which was fined $810,000, and the Trump Payroll Company, which was fined $800,000. While the fines, which are less than the cost of a Trump Tower apartment, aren't big enough to impact the company's operations or future, the conviction is a black mark on the Republican's reputation as a savvy businessman as he mounts a campaign to regain the White House. Neither the former president or his children, who helped run and promote the Trump Organization, were in the courtroom for the sentencing hearing. In a statement released after that sentencing, the Trump Organization said it did nothing wrong and would appeal the verdict. Defense attorneys had argued that the fine should be slightly lower because they said state law bans fines on multiple counts of the same charge. They estimated the penalty should have been $750,000 or less for the two Trump entities. Because the Trump Organization is a corporation and not a person, a fine is the only way a judge can punish the company after its conviction last month for 17 tax crimes, including charges of conspiracy and falsifying business records. The company has asked for 30 days to pay the fine. The judge has ordered it pay in 14 days. The United States has now collected 510 reports of unidentified flying objects, many of which are flying in sensitive military airspace. While there's no evidence of extraterrestrials, they still pose a threat. That's according to declassified reports from the government. Last year, the Pentagon opened an office, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, which was solely focused on receiving and analyzing all of those reports of unidentified phenomena, many of which have been reported by military pilots. It works with the intelligence agencies to further assess those incidents. The events continue to occur in restricted or sensitive airspace, highlighting possible concerns for safety of flight or adversary collection activity, that according to the Office of the Director of National Intelligence in its 2022 report. The classified version of the report addresses how many of those objects were found near locations where nuclear power plants operate or nuclear weapons are stored. The 510 objects include 144 objects previously reported, as well as 366 new reports. In both the old and new cases, after analysis, about half of them had been determined to exhibit unremarkable characteristics and could be characterized as unmanned aircraft systems like drones or balloon-like objects. That's according to this report. About half the new cases, however, could not be explained and appear to have demonstrated unusual flight characteristics or performance capabilities and require further analysis. The office is also tasked with reporting any movements or reports of objects that may indicate a potential adversary as a new technology or capability. The Pentagon's Anomaly Office is also to include any unidentified objects moving underwater, in the air, or in space, or something that moves between those domains, which could pose a new threat. The report says efforts to destigmatize reporting and emphasize that these objects may pose a threat likely contributed to the additional amount of reports. Well, the official start of the 2023 tax filing season is January 23rd. That's when the IRS will begin accepting and processing 2022 returns. The organization announced that yesterday. This news comes after the National Taxpayer Advocate reported that the IRS watchdog is seeing a light at the end of the tunnel of the IRS customer service struggles, thanks to the hiring of thousands of new workers and tens of billions of dollars in new funding provided to the IRS in the Democrats' climate and health law. Agency leadership says taxpayers should expect a smoother filing season this year. The IRS has most recently added 5,000 new customer service representatives who were trained in taxpayer rights and technical and account management issues, and is chipping away at the hundreds of thousands of unprocessed returns from last tax season. The House Republican majority has promised to rescind the nearly $71 billion that Congress has provided the IRS, even though the bill they approved on Monday is unlikely to advance in the Democratic-run Senate. The filing deadline for most taxpayers to submit their 2022 tax returns, file extensions, and pay money is April 18th. That's because the normal filing date of April 15th falls on a weekend, and the District of Columbia's Emancipation Day holiday falls on April 17th. Taxpayers requesting an extension will have until October 16th to file. Most open enrollment for the Affordable Care Act ends this Sunday. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services said a record 16 million people have signed up since November the 1st. More than 3 million people are new to the exchange this year. The government said the Affordable Care Act is gaining popularity after federal enhancements reduce the price. Most people can find a plan that costs less than $10 per month. Some states like California, Massachusetts, and New York run their own exchanges that will be open until January 31st. Even after open enrollment ends, Americans who lose health care during the year or have very low income can still sign up throughout the fiscal year. The Connecticut Supreme Court concluded yesterday that it lacked jurisdiction to rule on a lawsuit challenging a now-lapsed executive order requiring students to wear masks in classrooms in an effort to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. In September, the court heard arguments in the case brought by the Connecticut Freedom Alliance and a group of parents opposed to the mask requirement. The plaintiffs asked the High Court to overturn a 2021 Superior Court ruling which upheld the mandate issued by Governor Ned Lamont at the onset of the pandemic. Lamont sunset the order early last year in a 19-page unanimous ruling dismissing the appeal. Justice Gregory Dioria wrote that the court was not convinced by the plaintiff's arguments that the case was still relevant despite the mandate's repeal. One such argument, brought by attorney Norm Pattis, was based on the potential that the state would enact another mask mandate in the future. The court saw no evidence to suggest that was the case, and in its ruling, the area said the argument was entirely speculative since neither Lamont nor the Department of Education had signaled any plans to impose new restrictions. This week's ruling comes as a recent surge in hospitalized COVID patients began to subside. As of yesterday, there were 698 COVID-positive patients admitted to Connecticut hospitals, a decline of 63 people from the prior week. For the first time in 50,000 years, Connecticut residents will have the chance to see something a little different in the night sky. This comet gives off a green light, is named CJ 2022 E3. It'll make its closest appearance to the sun. It also makes its closest approach to Earth, or its pedigree, on February the 2nd, when it passes the planet at 26 million miles. According to Space.com, that comet has not been seen on Earth since the last ice age. NASA noted that the brightness of the comet is notoriously unpredictable, and as of right now, there's no certainty that the comet will make a strong visible appearance. However, NASA said the comet has been significantly brighter since December, so stargazers may have a chance to catch a glimpse. Connecticut residents should check out the night sky facing the northeastern horizon around 11:20 p.m. For best results, they suggest using either binoculars or a telescope. Tonight it's going to be mostly cloudy, lows in the upper 20s to lower 30s. Tomorrow, more clouds than sun. It'll be chilly and breezy, highs in the upper 30s. For Sunday, a mix of sun and clouds, highs near 40, more clouds with a stray snow shower in the eastern part of the state. For MLK Day on Monday, lots of sunshine, but highs will only be in the lower 40s. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back and speak with tonight's guest, former state senator for Connecticut's 26th district, Will Haskell, who was the youngest state senator in Connecticut's history. He retired after the last term. He's also got a book called 100,000 First Bosses, My Unlikely Path as a 22-year-old Lawmaker. Will join us next here on Connecticut Politics TV.